Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster, and I want to thank you for joining me on this silent night here in the Winter Hamlet for the semi-finals for the Reforged Winter Invitational Tournament. Today we're going to have a 4 versus 4 on, as you may have guessed, the Winter Hamlet. This is a map that was made specifically for this tournament and will be released to the public alongside patch 0.97, if not a little bit earlier. Just as a Christmas present, early Christmas present for all of you guys out there. So if you enjoyed this map and this battle, and you want to play on it, well, you're going to get your chance. In any case, a little look at the topography here. The center of the map is dominated by this big village. There are many ways in and out, and there's quite a lot of wide open areas. The buildings as well are enterable. Most of them you can't like run through the walls or anything. You can see a lot of fences and stuff like that here, but you can enter into some of them, some of the courtyards and things like that. And a few of them you can actually go inside of the edifice and hide in there and use that to your advantage. All around the outside, there's a lot of different terrain. There's some hills here, especially this little avenue of attack. If you guys watched the last video that was put out by UMAT Commander on this map, this particular route here through this, or at least skirting this barbarian village, kind of on the outskirts of town, is an important flanking route, and it will also be so today as well. But over on the other end, a lot of wide open space, a lot of hills. It's actually a nice little idyllic lake over here. That's unfortunately frozen for the time being, but you still can't stand on it. And that extends all the way around the perimeter of the town. So, now that we've taken a look at the map, let's take a look at some of the army comps, and then we can get into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is the Forces of Numenor, a brand new faction in 0.97 being played by myself. I've brought a mostly heavy infantry, not so much a rush-focused faction, but I do have a lot of missile power, especially in the min-range. I've got a couple units of the Numenorian Shield Guard, and forming the core of my army is going to be 3 units of Romena Marksmen, who have armor upgrades, attack upgrades, and in addition to all of that, they have a chevron, so they are formidable indeed. So I'm going to have to try and take care of them as best I can. New unit here, which I don't think anyone has seen yet, is the Seafarers of Nindamos. They're an interesting little hybrid unit. Technically they have a model for throwing javelins, but what they throw is throwing axes, which means that they're not armor piercing, but they have a higher base damage, which makes them better against certain subsets of units, as opposed to the javelins, which are better at, tackling heavily armored and heavily shielded foes. Unlike most throwing axes, however, these guys have very limited ammunition. They are purely a support unit. They're the cheapest unit on the Numenor roster, so I expect to see them quite a lot. But they are capped at 2, and they are still 700, and their missile ammunition, I believe, is capped at 2 instead of 5, which is the norm for throwing axes. So they are purely support, very useful for keeping the Numenorian backlines or their wings safe from cavalry. Cavalry especially needs to watch out for these guys, because a lot of the more lightly armored skirmish cavalry out there, or some of the lightly armored lancers, will find themselves fearing this unit, I think. A lot of cavalry units have no problem trying to skirt around spearmen, who are quite a lot slower than they are. But these guys, of course, have their missiles, so even when you're out of range, you are still within striking distance of the Seafarers of Nindamos. So they definitely have a lot going for them, but they are very much a niche support unit. Moving on over here, another company by Seafarers of Nindamos, second company by Numenorian Shield Guard. Where are all my sexy Marines? Yes, here they are. So this is my center line here. It's a phalanx of 3 units of Romena Sentinels and 3 units of Romena Marines, who all have, if you guys aren't familiar with the Numenor faction, the Romena Marines are also javelins, but like the Seafarers of Nindamos, they have below average ammunition, and they are indeed the only armor-piercing unit, aside from the Temple Guard, that the Numenorians can bring. Other than that, they have no armor-piercing other than, for the most part, their missile units. So, definitely an interesting weakness for Numenor there that can be quite easy to exploit. Moving on to my cavalry side, or cavalry wing, I should say. I have a unit here of the Numenorian Lancers, and I don't know where my second unit is. I know they're around here somewhere, though. Where have I left them? Ah, yes, here they are. The Eldalande Nobles, which are a new bodyguard unit, or at least a bodyguard unit type. We have Lancer bodyguards, we have Knight bodyguards, we have Foot bodyguards, Spear bodyguards, etc., etc. What we didn't have for a very long time was a melee cavalry bodyguard, so the Eldolandi nobles are going to be just that. They are not a replacement for knights, however, having only 5 bonus versus cavalry as opposed to the 10 of the knight units. Their stats are also a little bit lower, so the other, the small but formidable melee knight unit that is available to Numenor, that being the Alcarondas Faithful, are in no danger of becoming obsolete because of the Eldolandi nobles. So the Alcarondas Faithful are smaller than the Eldolandi nobles, as the Numenorean cavalryans tend to be quite small in general, but the Eldolandi nobles don't hold a candle to them. That being said, they are very strong, especially against Lancers. These guys will chew through Lancers. They are heavily armored, really good armor values on these guys, I think about 12 or so. High damage, pretty decent melee defense of about 10, I believe, so it's not terrible. It's about the same as the Serpent Guard units. But yeah, against Lancer units, these guys are going to be an absolute terror. I think that just about does it for my army, so let's go ahead and move on now to one of my allies. My closest ally is the Witch Realm of Angmar, being played by Eclipse. He's brought some good to bad guard. You guys, doesn't look like they have their armor upgrades, but they will be getting a new armor upgrade model in 0.97. And it sees them use like little scraps of like dwarven armor because they're from Gundabad, which was previously a dwarven settlement, a very important, certainly a very culturally significant settlement for the dwarves. So naturally, they have a lot of armories and weapons that were left behind when they lost it to the orcs. So the Gundabad Guard will be able to equip themselves thus. Over here, I got some Black Captain's Legion, formerly known as the Black Watch Legion. Actually, I think we've got about 2 companies here of the Black Captain's Legion. I personally like this name change. For those of you who don't know, the Black Captain is another one of the myriad names for the Witch King. And, of course, these are the Angmarim, so they are his personal army. So I think that's a very appropriate name. Got some Witch Realm pikemen here, going to be really important. I find that pikes are taking... They're important, but I haven't seen them be quite so dominant, since I think that people are kind of understanding the ways in which the weaknesses of pikes can be exploited quite greatly. Namely is that they're not very flexible, especially when they're fighting in their spear wall formation. They tend to fight in a very durable but also not terribly flexible line. And it is actually quite easy to surround them. They don't respond to surround tactics very well. So pikes are still taking center stage on the battle line, as they are in 0.96.1. But I think that people's awareness of their weaknesses has increased quite a lot. So people are better able to deal with pikes. And there's a lot of things, of course, that can cause pikes a lot of problems. Mostly AP missiles, hand-thrown missiles. Throwing axes are especially good at it, since most pikes tend to have about 10 or so damage, and that's the base for even the most basic throwing axe. So yeah, it can do a lot of damage to them. Over here we have some Trolls of Angmar. I really hope these guys get a new model soon. They're looking a little bit, let's be honest, they're looking a little bit dated here. But I know that we'll be seeing some model upgrades for them in the future. Already the orcs of the White Hand, Isengard, otherwise known as, have already gotten their new model, and I'm sure the Trolls of Angmar will be soon to follow. I don't know if that will come in 0.97 though, but anyways, I digress. Over here we got some Angmar Halberds, 1, 2, 3 units of the Angmar Halberds, and a couple units of Witch Realm Scourge Raiders. A lot of mid-range punch here, a lot of close-range killing power, and of course we've got some Guardians of Carndum to top it all off. 3 units of the Guardians of Carndum, and I don't think they have any armor upgrades. And then last, but certainly not least, yes, you're going to see the Witchers again in this battle, and their fancy new green fireball, which is pretty damn cool. And you guys have really had an opportunity to get a good look at it, but you're certainly going to do so today. Moving on now, we have the 3rd Blue Team Army, that being Rudour, played by Tundras Fox. Got a lot of veteran players on the field today, if you guys might have noticed, and it's going to be a hell of a show. But anyway, get a little bit off topic there. Got some Huronite pikemen, no longer lock morale, which is, yeah, it's a good thing. Lock morale pikes should generally be limited, very heavily limited. You can usually bring, I think, about 2 or 3 units of the Huronite pikemen, so it's a little bit much. They're mixed in here with some Rudour swordsmen, looks like about 3, so altogether a nice little formidable pike block. And yeah, you guys are probably, I mentioned this earlier, but you're definitely noticing the trend of small phalanxes and a lot of supporting units, which is pretty pretty typical, I would say, for team games. The phalanxes are very reliable, and I think that people are going to lean on them a lot more moving forward, especially after a lot of the players who are watching the .97 tournament, and they can see these tactics at work, and just how far that can carry you once they get a hold on .97. I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. But you're also going to see a ton of support units, so a lot of micro-intensive armies, a lot of variation, which I think that's an acceptable compromise. Anyway, got some Ed Moore's Troll Hunters here. I'll try to stay on topic. I swear I can do it. 2 units of Ed Moore's Troll Hunters. Got a little bit of a buff for them. I think they shrunk by about 20, but they also got some more damage, a little bit more melee defense, and I think an extra point of armor, if I'm not mistaken. Over here, got some more Hereditary Pikemen and some Rudauer Swordsmen. Bunch of Dunmen Hunters. I know that there's some cavalry hanging out back here. I got 2 units of the Rudauer Clansmen, 1, 2. Unit of Witch Realm Enslavers. I really like these guys, but they also need a new model quite badly. But I know for a fact that Cavalry Coma is working on giving these guys a new model, and I think you guys are going to be really impressed with it. I haven't had a chance to see it, but like he's never ever let us down before, so we know it's going to be cool. Over here we got some Coldfell Maidens. For those of you that don't know, these guys, how sexist of me. These ladies, we are equal opportunity employers over here at the Reforged team. These ladies are Spear Cavalry as well as Jav Cav. The only thing that they lack that other Spear Cavalry tend to have is an armor-piercing charge. However, they have a decent amount of charge damage. It's not going to do a whole lot, but they are a solid answer to Rudauer's more cavalry-focused enemies. Over here, we got some Dunlin Scouts. Not bad. 410 charge. Pretty high morale as well as Rudauer units tend to have. They are not much to write home about otherwise, though. So they will die like dogs, but you can bring them in fairly substantial quantities. So, moving on over here, another unit of Coldfell Maidens. Got some Hereditary Nobles to really the cherry on top of the Rudauer Cavalry. Actually, speaking of Rudauer Cavalry, another 2 companies here of the Dunlin Scouts. A lot of Rudauer Cavalry on the field today, not something you see very often. So 4 Dunlin Scouts, a couple of Jav Cav, and some Hereditary Nobles. It looks to me like Tundra's Fox is really going to try and play the field today with all these fast-moving units. Moving on over here to the 4th and final Blue Team Army, we have the forces of Umbar, being commanded by Thorn. He's got some Belly Gear Footmen, 1, 2, 3 regiments of them. 3 units of Corsair Pikemen, making a very cost-effective front line. Again, we're seeing this this pike phalanx that's brought as kind of a center line, and then you're going to have a lot of things supporting that. Over here we have some Warlords of Umbar, fan favorite because damn they are sexy. Speaking of the work of Cavalry Coma, this is one of his masterpieces, I would say. Over here, Narnar Royal Guard, looking fly as usual. I believe they also give +5 morale to nearby units, so an effective support unit, even if they're not going to get a ton of killing done. Over here, Narnar Sentinel. Speaking of lock morale pikes, these guys are tops. I think they're the only lock morale pike in the game, and certainly one of the better armored and of course shielded pikes. Very, very strong defensively. And looks like they've got some hidden stuff in here. From what I remember, he's got some Alcaron as Legion. Yeah, you can see them. Well, you can't see them, but you can see their card there. And I'm pretty sure he's also got a ton of Corsair Savages as well, so a lot of shock power. But we'll see that progressively as the battle continues on. So let's go ahead and see what should I call them the defenders? They're kind of defensive in this battle, sure. We'll call them the defenders. We're gonna see what the defending team is bringing to the battle today. Alright, I think it's fitting that we start with the army opposite to myself that happens to be one of the lead developers. Here we have the army of Rohan, being commanded by Sin of the Dark Cloud. He's brought a couple units of these Rittermark skirmishers, who are quite a formidable hybrid unit indeed. They use the very quick two-handed animations, which they use with an axe, so it's quite high damage, a little bit lower on the melee defense side of things. They've also got javelins, so it's a lot of utility to pack into one unit. They're one of the few melee, I would say purely melee cavalry units. Although they're not really purely melee cavalry, although they're kind of skirmish cavalry. Rohan's melee cav tend to be hybrid units, just that's kind of how it worked out. It wasn't necessarily by design. But yeah, these are 2 of them right here. The other one being the Red Shield of Erkenbrand? Yeah. Rohan doesn't have a solely dedicated melee cavalry unit aside from their Sons of Eora. Out in the front here, bunch of Eastmark Spearmen. I think we've got 2, 3, yeah, about 3 or so companies of Eastmark Spearmen, who again have a lot of utility. They throw javelins, and they have a new trait, which I suppose I should bring up to you guys now, because we've seen several units in this battle alone that have it already. That being the, I want to call it the precision trait. It's like PREC, prec. Yeah, I'm going to call it the precision trait, it's just easier. And units that are equipped with it, when they have a missile unit, they when you order them to attack, if they're not on auto fire, then they will throw a single volley of their missile, and then it will charge headlong into combat, which is particularly useful for units like the Scourge Raiders who have this trait. The Eastmark Spearmen are another one, and the Ravenna Marines are another still. Hereditine Berserkers, I think, are one of the others, and I think that might be it. And that might be kind of the length and breadth of the units that have this. We're kind of experimenting with it right now, and I really only wanted to give it to units that it would be appropriate for. But yeah, Eastmark Spearmen, one of those kinds of units. You can use them to quickly toss a volley of admittedly lower tier javelins, and then rush to engage the enemy, which is, it's got its ups and its downs. But if you have them on auto fire, then they will, I believe, toss their entire payload before stopping, and then you can issue attack commands like normal. Anyway, 3 units there of the Eastmark Spearmen. A couple units of the Riddermark Axemen. You can see the Rohan new unit models up close and personal. Again, the work of Cavalry Koma did an amazing job. 2 units, or another unit here, making 2 of the Riddermark Axemen. A 3rd company, I think, in the back, and then bringing up the rear, we got some of the Westmark Spearmen, formerly known as the Royal Guard. Got some keepers of the Royal Hall, or the Golden Hall, rather. So I think the intent with all of these javelins is to try and rival my Numenorians for a mid-range punch, and to inflict some damage as quickly as possible. Try and grind me down by attrition, because my infantry is far, far superior to Rohan's. Rohan's infantry isn't garbage in .97 like they used to be, but they are not a match for Numenor, not in the slightest. However, that's in like a straight fair fight. If he manages to whittle down my numbers, which I believe is the intent here, then he'll be able to fare a lot better. I think Numenor would probably still be able to cut their way through the Rohirrim, but yeah, it would not be as bad as it might otherwise be. Let's see. Now we move on to the real meat and potatoes of Sin's army. Got some Riddermark Cavalry, 2 units, I believe, of the Riddermark Cavalry, possibly as many as 3. There's Aerith of Allbird mixed in there. I think there's a 1st Marshal's Bodyguard, and I'm almost positive that there's some Sons of Eorl as well. I'd be surprised if there was not. Yes, indeed there are. There they are with their distinctive uniforms, unless that's Aerith. Oh yeah, here they are. Here they are. That's a lot of cavalry. Damn, is that a scary amount of cavalry? And I remember thinking that to myself when I was playing this game. Is that, yeah, that's going to be a really big hurdle for me to have to deal with when I've only got 2 units of cavalry. Moving on now, we have the Dale army being commanded by Lord of Belagos. He's got 2 units of Dalian cavalry. He's actually got a really nice, substantial army, and I like the way that Dale is shaping up in .97. Got a couple units of dismounted Earls of Dale here, some Girions Paladins, Dalian Royal Guard, Dalian Marksmen. Royal Guard are especially nice. They get +5 morale to units within 100 meters, so an extremely effective support unit, especially for units like these, the Lake Town Bowmen, who tend to be lower on the morale scale, not quite so low as orcs. They've got a couple of extra, I think about 3 extra morale over your average orc unit. But without support, they can rout quite quickly. Over here, got a couple units of the Sword Masters of Karnan. I really like these guys, and I think they'll be getting an armor upgrade. I could be wrong. I remember Kuro mentioning that at some point. But unlike most of the Swordmaster units in the game, they're not heavily armored. But what they lack in armor, they make up for in damage and skill. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. That's probably why Belagost has them hidden here behind these buildings. Doesn't want to get them espied early on and then focused down by enemy archers. Over here, 2 units of Dalian Spearmen. Now, the additional 2 companies of the Lake Town Bowmen, who, unlike their current form in .96.1, they are hybrid sword infantry, so that's kind of cool. 3rd company there, the Dalian Spearmen, and I think that does it for Belagost's army, unless he's got some hidden stuff somewhere. Let's move on now to the Gondor army under the command of Creed, and we'll try and move a little bit faster through this. He's got some 4 bearers of Valakirka, some Marines of Pelargir, a Javelin unit, very deadly. He's going to be moving all of them forward here to contest this passage through the hamlet with Rudour just across the way from him. Got some garrison archers from Rabsekor over here as well. Very tanky, not super damaging, but they make up for it with their ability to just soak up arrows like nobody's business. Lots of Gondor infantry here. I think about 2, maybe 3 companies mixed in together. A couple units of Gondor archers with 1 armor upgrade. Mithrandir's retainer bodyguard, 2 HP lancer bodyguard. Ain't no joke, very deadly on the charge. And they've got a lot of staying power in addition too. Got some Gondor cavalry over here. They are spear cavalry, mostly a supporting unit. Don't expect them to win the day through brute force alone. But if you're looking for rear charges or just looking to support some of the more substantial units, like say the Mithrandir's bodyguard, then the Gondor cavalry will serve you in good stead. And now we get on to the real good stuff. A couple units here, the Fountain Guard. That's going to be the backbone of the Gondorian army. Got some more Gondor infantry over here, 2 units Gondor infantry, and I think that just about does. No, he's got some more cavalry over here as well. 2 units of Sentinels of Heirluin, and okay, that's going to be it. So now we move on to the 4th and final Red Team army. We have the Realm of Lindon being commanded by Engsveds. He's brought some Horse Lords of Ulmo, some Harlandon infantry. Actually, a lot of his stuff is hidden, so it's going to be difficult to get a good measure of his composition before the battle begins. Got some Forlindon Marines, some Forlindon Long Spears. Got some Forlindon Archers out here in front. Actually, while we're here, take a look at that new helmet. Yes, they got a new helmet. They look way cooler, I think. It's a better quality model. It's going to get touched up in the future, but it's way nicer than what they had previously. I think he's also got some Harlandon Guard hanging around here as well. The spear infantry bow hybrid unit. Forlindon Long Spear is another unit of them over here. And the Mython Nobles. The Mython Nobles can do some serious work. This is a unit that I have a lot of respect for. If you use them well, they can quite literally turn the tide of a battle in your favor. If you don't use them well and you get them caught out, then they will die in seconds. And they are expensive, so you don't want that to happen. But yeah, it's a very, dare I say, manly unit to use. You either use it well or you fail completely. So it's not very forgiving in that regard. But I think that's going to do for the army comps. Let's go ahead, jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. So first things first, we're going to have Creed here move up alongside his ally Dale, and they're going to heavily fortify the center of town. So it's going to be down to Tundra's Fox to kind of weather this storm. That's a lot of missile damage to be coming the way of a lightly armored faction like Rudour. Tundra's Fox returning fire with his numerous Dunman Hunters. He's got the ability, I think, to weather this for a while. The Edmure Stroll Hunters are going to take a little bit of attrition damage from that from the overshot there from the enemy archers, but they've got really nice armor and like 9 or something shield value. So you can see that they're weathering that quite nicely. I don't think they've taken a single casualty so far. Same cannot be said for the Dunman Hunters, who are far worse off in this kind of exchange. Over here, we've got Angmar coming up the center, fortifying as well, menacing the positions of Dale a little bit right of center of town. Dalian Spearmen here, they're going to be the ones holding back the tide. Meanwhile, let's fast forward just a little bit. I know that the Angmar army is going to push up this avenue here as well. So let's talk a little bit about my army comp and how I want to use it. We have had success on this map before using, actually, now that I mention it, there's a good battle by You Might Commander that kind of shows this off. And it's with the exact same composition we have now. Different players, but it's the same faction composition, which is really funny. But we'll talk a little bit about the strategy in just a moment. You can see some Sin of the Dark Clouds cavalry over here, loitering in the hills, looking, probing, and testing my my attention to see if they can get a few pot shots in. As you can see, I'm not going to be caught in unawares, at least not this time. Got my Numenorian Lancers and my Eldalande Nobles already in position. Seafarers of Nindamo, so I'm going to stick them up here on this hill, take a little bit of an aggressive stance with them, move them forward. So this way I've got a nice net of units that if he tries to slip through or slip around, then I'll be able to converge on him pretty quickly. So for example, if he was going to try and come around here near the bank, I'd be able to close in on him with my cavalry and come in from the rear with my Seafarers of Nindamos and really put the herd on. So then the Dark Cloud being very aggressive here, getting close enough to toss their javelins into my Seafarers of Nindamos, and they're going to adeptly float away after that, after dealing a couple casualties to my Seafarers of Nindamos. Nothing particularly scary. In response to this, I'm going to bring up my Romena Marksman here, put a little bit of pressure on these cavalrymen and try and keep my left wing secure. And send the Dark Cloud in response is going to fall back. I'm going to claim the life of only one of his Bittermark skirmishers, as opposed to, I think, the 2 or 3 kills that he got on my Seafarers and Indamos. But I guess we killed the man and the horse he was riding, too. So I'm going to count that as 2, just because I am. There's nothing you can do about it. Moving on over this way, see my ally Angmar, already beginning to move forward, probably getting a little bit closer than he needs to. Well, it looks like I did put enough fences on this map, and now these guys are just going to run straight through the walls of this building. Weird. Some barrel white magic right there or something. I don't know. It's the Witch King. We'll just chalk it up to sorcery. In any case, as the Angmarian move forward and take up position, they are going to come under a storm of arrows from the Dalian side of things. Dalian marksmen giving it everything they got, pouring clouds of arrows in there. Lake Town bowmen over here have expended their ammunition, and it looks like Belagos is going to throw them at the first line here of Snaga Stalkers, which I probably wouldn't have done. I think I would have brought these guys over here in front of my Dalian marksmen and used them as a blocker or like a fodder unit. This doesn't really seem worth it. I mean, they'll get in there, they'll do some damage to the Snaga, sure, but there are some Guardians of Karn Doom nearby, and of course there's the Troll. So the intent here may be to use the Lake Town units as bait, to draw his enemy forward so that he can spray them down as they're sitting there in a big cloud trying to deal with this single unit here of the Lake Town Bowmen. But against Angmar, probably wouldn't be the wisest decision. It doesn't seem like they've changed their focus yet anyway. They're still shooting at the Witch Realm Pikemen. Certainly a big threat. Probably one of the bigger threats on the field, I would say, just because of the range that Pikemen have over many of the units that the defenders have at their disposal on their, I guess this would be their right wing. I'm going to move forward as well, move to support my ally, and get myself into range. I'm going to begin to skirmish with the Dalian marksmen so that this damage to my enemy's pike unit will not go unanswered. Now, over here in the town, you can see a very aggressive move by Angmar. They're going to charge forward with a unit of their barrel whites, being backed up by a unit of halberds. Dalian spearmen, though, they are no joke, and they will hold this line for a very, very long time. I love how long their spears are. They're almost like a pike unit. I think they have some of the longest spears in the game. I don't know, there's just something very aesthetically pleasing about it. In any case, let's see what's happening elsewhere on the battlefield. If we pop over to the other side, looks like a little bit of skirmishing going on. Some Abrazani and Mardubaweeb have come out of the woodwork. They are now focusing on dispatching the Forlanon archers. But where are we? Ooh, this is where it's going to get real fun. So, the Barrow Whites and the Angmar Halberds are occupying the Dalian Spearmen here. You can see the Lord of Belagos is moving in with some of his Lake Town bowmen. I don't know if he sees the Witchers or if he's just going to move for a surround. It would certainly be very easy to miss the Witchers in a large team game like this, especially at night. And it looks like, indeed, Belagos is going to miss them to his peril. So the Witchers winding up here. Let's wait for that glorious green fire. Ooh, yeah, here it comes. Belagos sees that he's trying to get out of there, but it's far too late. And those units are going to get cooked. They're going to be done like chicken dinner. And as they try to flee, the flames on the ground are actually going to claim the lives of some of these unfortunate but panicked guardsmen. Luckily, this Lake Town bowman unit somehow managed to escape from that funeral pyre. But the Dalian spearmen not going to be so lucky, and now Eclipse is going to be through. He's going to be through in a really big way. There are, of course, some nearby reinforcements, Swordmasters of Karnan, and a few other things, but I think that the good team is going to be pretty hard pressed to hold us at bay here. A lot of the Rohirrim infantry is not exactly quality. They do have a lot of decent Riddermark Axemans, a lot of AP, and of course there's the javelins that these Mark spearmen carry, but the quality, both Angmar and Numenor, they're very melee-centric armies, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for factions like the limited Dalish contingent over here, along with the Rohirrim army, to try and hold back. So they're going to have to use their cavalry very, very well if they're going to see the dawn, as it were. Angmar infantry here, quickly dispatching the Lake Town bowmen, the victorious Barrow Whites and their halberd escorts. have now moved in against the Lake Town Bowmen. Kree is going to commit a company or two of Gondorian infantry to help hold down the fort. And there's really nothing evil, I think, that can really get in here. They're going to have to go all the way around. They won't be able to slip through the gaps. So Belagos is actually quite safe at this point to commit some of his Swordmaster units to the fight. But it looks like we got a little bit of action going on over here on the other side. Mythlon Nobles, ooh, being a little bit reckless, I would say. By charging into pikemen. The pikemen can be a really big problem for them with their high damage against elephants, which is what the chariots are classified as. And of course, so can the Alcarondas Faithful, who it doesn't look like we saw in the army comp phase. And Angsvitz knows just how deadly that melee cavalry unit can be, so he's going to hightail it out of there as quickly as possible. Draw the Umbarum a little bit closer to his cavalry. Whether this is by design or simply by necessity, I'm not too sure. Over here, Numenorian Lancers getting a charge into the Harlandon Guard. It's pretty risky, especially with these Mythlon Lancers in support. Or rather, yeah, with the Mythlon Lancers in support, that's what I meant to say. Alcarondas Faithful really getting stuck in. Thorn is coming forward in a big way, trying to get everything that he's got into the fight, trying to overwhelm the elves with just sheer force of numbers. And of course, he's got enough units here to really exploit Linden's perennial weakness, that being their low armor. Let's see what we got over here. Horse Lords of Ulmo entangled in a fight with the Warlords of Umbar. You know, I would have stood my ground here. I think that would have been a pretty favorable fight. The Horse Lords of Ulmo had some spear support nearby. They would have been able to surround those Warlords of Umbar. Of course, there are some infantry nearby, so I guess that would have turned around pretty quickly. So maybe Angsvitz did make the right call there after all. Over here, Mythlon Nobles charging through. Oh, look at the damage that they do to those Dunlin Scouts. 3 of them at once. Very impressive. Although now that they're over here near the pikemen, I think this is where we're going to start to see the Mythlon Nobles begin to fall away. That is not a good place for them to be. Driving hard into the center of these pikemen. Ooh, they are doing some damage, but down they go like a sack of bricks. Let's see what's going on over here on the other side. My army has finally made it to the Rohirrim. Rohirrim are, looks like I'm going to catch them with their pants down a little bit here. I think I've managed to meet, ooh, decent volley of javelins going in to the front of the Westmark spearmen there, and you can see the precision trade at work. They're going to immediately pull out their swords and go and get stuck in. Rittermark Axemen, this is not where they want to be, especially not against a Numenorian pike line. They should have been saved and probably used as flanking units. Is the best way I think that they can, that the Rohirrim player Sin of the Dark Cloud would have been able to get his money's worth out of them. Westmark Spearmen taking a volley here from my Romana Marksman in the back. Well, let's see what we got here. Yeah, I'm quickly bringing up all of my support units, and I'm trying to keep them as safe as I possibly can. But if you look in my back lines here, behind the position of myself and Angmar, Sin of the Dark Cloud has a very strong presence indeed. He's got a lot of Rittermark skirmishers, a ton of his cavalry, which are over here, and they're now on the move. So the infantry fight is going well. I've got some units in reserve in preparation. Both of my cavalry units are in the back. Should be able to protect my Romana Marksmen. And the front lines, I'm doing well. But once that cavalry comes in, it's gonna be a different ball game. Let's see what we got here. The Rohirrim front lines being overrun at this point as my Romana Marksmen are able to pull their way through now that the Rohirrim are far less numerous. They're going to push their way over here into the Eastmark Spearmen and I think some of the Dalian Marksmen as well. Over on this side, ooh, we can see some Dalian Cavalry getting a charge here against my Romana Marines. That's going to prevent them from tossing their javelins, I'm fairly certain. Ooh, there's a lot of stakes here though. Want to be careful about that. Let's see if they get it off. Well, they might. Well, they do. How wonderful. Good to know that the precision traits will help them do that. Ooh, devastating volley there into the Dalian Cav, into everything. Belagos coming forward, and I think he's going to get himself caught on his own stakes here. Yes, some of his units turning around. This is a very bad place for these units to be. The Dalian Cavalry are going to rout almost immediately, and they're going to go right through their own stakes. A complete disaster. Very, very painful for Belagos. That's a lot of money down the drain really, really quickly. Dalian Marksmen being overwhelmed. We are winning thoroughly on this side. I've got some reinforcements here. The really heavy, big heavy hitters, Swordmasters of Karnan, Earls of Dale, and the And the Gyrian's Paladins over there as well, moving in to reinforce that crumbling left wing for the good team. Meanwhile, over here, doesn't seem like the battle is going terribly well for Ingsfitz. Got a lot of routing. His cavalry being just driven back here, falling on long spears. Oh no! Getting a piece of those Warlords of Umbar. This is a really bad place for that cav unit to be, although somehow they've managed to skirt through there unscathed. This is extremely surprising. I think it's because I don't really see any attack animations going off. They just seem to be trying to follow, but not so much attacking, and that's probably why. Although when the attacks start to happen, the Warlords fall away very, very quickly. Over here, the Umbarim howling over this hill, following up their charge with a hail of arrows, which is really going to put the hurt on those Linden long spears. I think we might see some breaking here as those infantry begin to charge in. Forlorn long spears on the verge of cracking. Ooh, Creed coming in now with his own cavalry, Sentinels of Heirluin. A little bit late to the party, but still, nonetheless, I'm sure they are a very welcome sight for the failing Linden line. We got over here a bunch of pikes. The Linden forces seem to have just been completely rolled up, or they fell back very, very early on, sensing kind of the way that battle was turning, and are trying to save whatever elements of their army that they can. Sentinels of Heirluin over here, getting stuck in. Belliger Footmen, though, probably not the best use of the Gondorian cavalry. Certainly it was a glorious charge, the way they all just came in here like a wrecking ball. What we got in the back here? Hell of a cav fight. Gondor cavalry squaring off against the Warlords of Umbar. Friend yours, Retainer Bodyguard. I think that together these two units, if committed, could beat the Warlords of Umbar. And indeed, they have essentially crippled them. We're down to 8. Very unfortunate for that unit. Got some Dunland Scouts over here too. Rudar has committed some of their cavalry. Narnar Sentinels. Yeah. The Umbar forces are in a little bit of disarray in areas, but it seems like Linden is having a far more difficult time. And now the Gondorian cavalry pulling out, having done, I suppose, what they came to do in taking out most of that warlord unit. Ingsfitz's cavalry not going to give this position so easy, but we'll come back and we'll see what happens there. Popping on over to the other side. Ah, no, this is where it gets really ugly. Sin of the Dark Cloud's cavalry coming in against my Romena marksmen. I've moved in my support units. I'm trying to use my cavalry to drive him back, but it's just such a nightmare. You can see dead horsemen and dead infantry on both sides. Meanwhile, on the front line, with some reinforcements from Gundabad, victory is pretty well assured, even against this block of elites here from Dale. Ooh, Laketown River Patrol having come out of nowhere. Looks like they expended their ammunition, but our forces were able to just weather that storm. I got some Romena Marines here getting clipped on that unit. They're trying to chase down some of the Eastmark Spearmen. Got some Riddermark Axemen in the back. So I've got a unit of Marines here behind enemy lines, which is a great place for them to be. Reserve company of Riddermark Axemen probably needs to be committed somewhere in the center. A nice flanking charge here against my Narnar Sentinels would inflict catastrophic damage. But it doesn't look like Apollo sees that opportunity. Over here in the tree line, you can see the Eastmark Spearmen trying to reload. Get a nice volley into, I presume, my larger body of infantry in the center, but my Numenorian Shield Guard going to move in and silence them. Another influx of Rohirrim reinforcements charging in very bravely against the Numenorians, these masters of close quarters warfare. And now the Riddermark Axemen have been committed alongside them. Another reserve company of Riddermark Axemen moving towards my center. This is a good place for them to be. I've got a really strung out line here. A charge from those armor-piercing axe shock troops would be absolutely devastating. Seems like they might be going after either my Seafarers or my Narnar Sentinels. Meanwhile, in the back, Sin of the Dark Cloud relentlessly charging down my units, trying to batter a hole in my line. My Seafarers and Ndamos were otherwise occupied, and they're actually going to take a charge from the rear and not get their spear bonus from the front. We might actually see this unit rout here unless he gets a little bit of support. First Marshal's Bodyguard coming in from the rear. A lot of the Rohirrim cavalry are dead. It's just absolute bedlam here in my back lines. Riddermark skirmishers have now arrived on scene. Angmar doing their best to move in and try and support me. I remember this point in the battle. I was desperately and quite obstinately insisting on my ally come and save me because I was just getting picked apart by some of the Dark Cloud's cavalry. Sons of the Oral here in my back lines. I know exactly what they're going to go for. Along with the air raid of Aldberg, they're going to try and even out this fight here. Luckily, I've got a fair amount of spear units on the line that I could use. Ooh, over here in my on my left wing, my Numenor units have been surrounded. However, there's enough of them, and we are beating the Eastmark Spearmen quite heavily that they can't really press us hard and squeeze us together. So I think we will be able to cut our way out of this encirclement eventually, just due to the sheer quality of Numenor. And we got over here Numenorian Lancers doing their best to hold back the tide. No idea where my Eldolande nobles are at this point. They could be anywhere. I think I've lost at least one unit of marksmen in this whole press. Good and Bad now has their spears, and they're starting to move forward with them. We're going to try and squeeze the remaining Rohirrim. Got some Seafarers from Nundamos over here beginning to reload. Hopefully they'll be able to deal some serious punishment to these Rohirrim and keep them out of our back lines. You can see my Numenorian Lancers charging in there, trying to do what they can. So we've got some Dunland Scouts, a little bit of reinforcements here from our Rudauer ally, which, thank goodness. Now the Rohirrim Cavalry are going to try and go for surprise rear charge, but I do see it. I'm going to turn around and counter-charge with my Numenorians. And a fierce battle is going to ensue underneath the trees here. A really cool battle. Rohirrim Infantry, bolstered by the Guardians of the Golden Hall, still holding on. Black Captain's Legion now coming in to try and seal the deal. My Numenorian units are being beaten over here by a combination of daily and elites. And I think it's just mostly daily and elites at this point. But with my Angmar, my ally nearby to reinforce me, we're going to be okay, I think. Over here, got some Scourge Raiders. Ooh, there goes my general. My Numenorian general just got cut down. So these Witch Realm Scourge Raiders pressing in against the Fountain Guard. Angmar trying to wage war on two fronts at once. Probably not the best idea, but it does, of course, tie up reinforcements that prevent Gondor and some of the remaining Dalish forces over here closer to the town center from coming to the aid of their ally. See, we got over here some survivors from the Lindon army now moving in to bolster the defense of the town center. Let's see what Lindon... it seems like they managed to get away with a significant number of their remaining forces. Got some Mithlond Marines here. Harland on guard. Ooh, Warlords of Umbar. Thorn's Warlords going for a cheeky charge here. Absolutely fearless. Gonna get a good piece of those Harland on guard. Still, they're gonna find themselves surrounded. That's a tough place for these cavalry units to be. Although it appears to be quite well timed. At the same time those Warlords are charging in, Thorn's units are making their way. They're hightailing it at Mach 10 towards that town center. And Thorn has a substantial number of troops remaining, including his Alcarondas Legion. I think it looks like most of his rank and file units did the brunt of the fighting. He's still got so much back here, and of course Rudauer is going to be coming in alongside him with a few of their support units. Got some Crossbow Corsairs here as well. Yeah, this battle for the town center far from over. Thorn is looking very, very healthy. Meanwhile, over here, it looks like a fight between Rudauer and Gondor has ensued, with Gondor getting the better of the savages from the hills. Red Nine Nobles over here, Dunman Hunters. This looks like a bit of a desperation ploy. Mithrandir's Retainer Bodyguard coming in against the Red Nine Nobles. Still some reserves left, however. Rudauer is not down and out yet. Still got the Troll Hunters, some Dunman Hunters, some Witch Realm Enslavers. Now that's a good thing to have in your pocket. Some hidden Blackwolds nearby, some Rudauer Clansmen. Yeah, Gondor's going to push out here, and they could find themselves surrounded and in a pretty bad way. So they're going to charge right into the Blackwolds unknowingly. This would be a great time for those Ronin Nobles to turn around. You could surround and potentially cripple that unit of Mithrandir's Retainer Bodyguard. And it looks like Tundra's Fox sees the opportunity, but of course so does Creed. He's going to pull his Mithrandir's Retainer Bodyguard out of there as quickly as he possibly can. So we got a few Dunland Scouts over here, some Dunman Hunters, and Creed's counterattack seems to have stalled out for the time being. It certainly wasn't a victory that was without its cost. There's a lot of dead Gondorians over here where most of the Rudauer army seems to have expired. Meanwhile, over here, Ooh, a combination of Fountain Guard and Dalian Spearmen holding the line. Swordmasters of Karnan getting routed. Looks like more Witcher fire from what I can tell. Ooh, that's nasty. I think we're going to see the end of the Witchers there, though. That's got to be the last of their ammunition. And so meanwhile out here, Dale still fighting the good fight. But now they are surrounded on all sides. Dismounted Earls of Dale not giving up without a fight, however. Numenorians and their Gundabad allies cutting down what remains of the flower of Dalish nobility. Some Dalian Royal Guard here along with the Girian's Paladins. It's going to be all she wrote for the remains of Dale, and I think most of the Rohirrim army as well. Sin the Dark Cloud's cavalry assault eventually stalled out with the help of my ally here. Got some Dunman scouts from Tundra's Fox, and I think it cost me most of my cavalry as well. Yeah, still have some Eldolandi nobles, still have some Numenorian lancers, but they are looking very haggard indeed. So for the time being, I'm going to try and regroup. Ooh, there goes the Angmar general, cut down by the Sons of Eorl. Managed to escape the massacre of most of the Rohirrim army, but that's going to be all she wrote for the Witchers. I think they're out of ammunition at this point, certainly got a lot of kills, I'm sure. And now, with the death of their general and the lack of forthcoming reinforcements, these Witch Realm Scourge Raiders are going to be repulsed by a combination of Lindon, Gondor, and I think the odd Dalish survivor in there, getting a little bit of revenge for the frankly appalling local defeats that Angmar has inflicted on them at least several times now. Sons of Eorl going for a rear charge, and that's going to be it. As soon as they hear the thunderous footsteps of those cavalrymen, Scourge Raiders is going to break and flee, and what few gains were made here are going to be lost, and now good team's going to have an opportunity to set up their defenses again. How long is that going to hold, though? Because it looks like they're going to need to just shuffle forces back towards the front against Umbar and Thornin, I should say, and his Umbar army. There goes the Dalish general. That's pretty well it for Dale, I think. Ooh, and the fight for the town center is just furious. Umbar reinforcements charging in. I think he's still got all of his really, truly powerful units, Royal Guard, Naru Royal Guard, in the back there. I wonder where the Alcaron-S faithful are. Ah, they're on the front lines, trying to press their advantage home, going toe-to-toe with the Harlingen infantry. Javelins flying overhead, just an absolute slaughter. We got here, some of the Dunland scouts have pushed hard into the heart of the Lindon army. 4 Lindon Marines now out of ammo, charging in to bolster the front lines, trying to hold back this tide of Corsairs. But there's a lot of pikes in there, and that I think is going to be significant. Although we are, of course, speaking of Lindon here, they have their own pikes, and they've got the counters to them as well. Oh, look at those javelins. Look at the arrows, just the missile support here that the good team has. It's really significant. We have a bit of braking. No, it looks like Thorn is just going to push in there, use his mass to try and wedge himself into the enemy formation and to make himself a gap. The good team forces in return are going to surge forward and overtake the exposed wing of Thorn. Creed's going to follow his ally in. Looks like they're going for a counter push. Luckily, Thorn is not entirely unprepared. You guys see a couple regiments here of the Bellier footmen moving forward to counter push the counter push. A lot of really nice tit-for-tat counterplay from both sides. Some missile units from Umbar now coming in to return the favor to the Lindon forces. Let's see what we got. It looks like Rudauer has moved forward to try and support their ally. Thorn's going to move some of his own forces over here so that Rudauer and his combined armies can keep their enemies busy in many places together. Of course, our pikemen being, of course, immediately targeted down. I got some Witch Realm enslavers. They're going to be instrumental in keeping the pressure on the good team at this end of the town square. There goes the Lindon general, cut down by some Coldfell maidens. I shouldn't say cut down, skewered with javelins by the Coldfell maidens. Angmar coming in now, pushing with everything they got. The Black Captain's Legion leading the way. And this is where the good team are looking like they're really going to struggle. More reinforcements over here, some more cavalry. Good to bad guard, they're going to be instrumental in helping to push and keep the pressure on. And I've now managed to regroup all of my forces. I am pretty battered from that fight, surprisingly battered. And I think a lot of that has to do with the solid army composition of Sin of the Dark Cloud. He definitely had a good comp for fighting Numenor, just not any pikes, which Rohan doesn't have. But other than that, he had a lot of AP missiles and a lot of armor piercing generally, which certainly took its toll on my army. It's mostly just a ragtag band of survivors at this point. If we just take a look out here, you just get a sense of the slaughter. It's a lot of dead Numenorians, a lot of dead Rohirrim in turn, and then over here, just the death knell of all of our cavalry. Like Rudauer's cavalry, my cavalry is mostly dead in here. I think all of Sin of the Dark Cloud's cavalry perished here along with the rest of his army. Just a slaughterhouse. Popping on over here, I'm going to add my strength to that of Angmar. And surprisingly enough, with the Fountain Guard and the Forlanon Long Spears, they're going to hold out well. You can see the pike blocks going at it. Individual sword and board units moving forward, trying to slip past the pole arms of their enemies. Some of the Guardians of Karn Doom engaging the Fountain Guard. It's a hell of a fight. A damn beautiful scrap, if I do say so myself. Ooh, some of the Fountain Guard here breaking. Down to 12, though. They certainly fought the good fight. Counter push over here. It looks like that's going to be... They don't seem to be doing terribly well, which is very surprising. It might have to do with how bunched up they are. But also the... It might be just a lack of pikes. Oh, that's why. It's the Witch Realm Enslavers with their massive armor piercing damage, which is like single-handedly turning this fight around. Forlanon Longspear. They also cause fear. So now the Lindon General is dead, and these units are all very tired. Angsvitz is running the risk of having his units rout off en masse, which would be just disastrous for the good team. Gondor infantry fighting hard. Seems like the Umbarum are starting to run out of speed on this side, but they have an ace in the hole in the form of the Narnar Sentinels, who are fresh and full health. Look at their percentages there. Good guys are trailing by 11%. As the defense of this town center begins to crumble. Bit of a desperation move here. Forlindon archers being thrown in the way of the Gundabad Guard and the Black Captain's Legion. Well, I think there was a troll there a second ago, but I guess he just disappeared. Harlanon infantry up here as well, trying to hold back the tide. It just seems like the good team is being pressed from all angles. Unit of Beligear footmen here charging up a central lane, trying to take one of the back roads into the town center, keeping the defenders occupied in every place that it is possible to do so. Black Wolves, Dumbmen Hunters, they're remnants, really, of Rudauer's army. They smell blood. The Gondorian units here on the verge of routing out. The Marines of Pelargir routing off. Gondor Roucher is going to be the next to follow them. And there goes the Gondor General, taken down by some Coldfell Maidens, I believe. And that's going to be the nail in the coffin of the Gondorian defense. They're going to rout right past their allies. The Forlindon Longspears, very tired, also leaderless. All his enemy units pushing nearby, and the routers, they're thinking about wavering, or thinking about routing as well. Even though this is a fight that they would win quite handily, and it seems like Angsvitz is going to try and pull them out. Probably not the best idea. Oh, I hope they don't rout. That is going to open up another lane of attack that I'm sure Thorn is going to be able to exploit. And they are going to get a little bit too close to these enemy units and start to break. Someone else's general has just gone down. We got some admit defeats here. Forlindon Marines, this thin line of Lindon units holding back the tide. They've killed quite a lot of the remaining good to bad units, but the Numenorians are going to be able to follow up the deaths of their comrades, pick up their rifles as it were, and continue to push forward. Longspear's going to route right through here, right into the next blob, and that's going to scare some of these units, and it could cause a rout all on its own. Ooh, Frontline Marines, Fountain Guard breaking. Everyone is breaking, and we're going to get more admit defeats there, and that's going to be it for the good team. An absolute slaughterhouse in the center here, although it is worth mentioning that in this battle, the handicap rules were in effect. So the evil players got about 1,000 extra gold each because they were, I believe, 10 points or more behind at some points in the tournament. So, yeah, hell of a fight. I got a whole bunch of kills. Most of them were the Rohirrim units, so you know there's not a lot of substance behind those. Eclipse got a ton of kills as well. Times Fox did well. Thorn, mostly Elven kills, but he just kept the pressure on our enemies the entire time. If you look at some of the good team kills, Creed getting the most kills for his team and in the game, indeed. 2,400. 1,800 there for Ingsfeds, managed to inflict serious casualties on the Umbarum and, of course, the forces of Rudour. Lord of Belagos not getting quite so many, but still he did his best. He had some really unfortunate luck early on. I shouldn't say it was luck. It was deliberate action on the part of Eclipse 2500 that caused a bit of a catastrophic defeat in the early game for part of Belagos' army. Sin the Dark Cloud did his best, but the Rohirrim were just not up to the task of fighting Numenorians and most of the armies of Angmar with only elements of Belagos' army to assist them. They held out for as long as they could, but the Rohirrim fought that fight largely unaided. So yeah, it was never, I think, going to go terribly well for them without a little bit of help from their allies. So very unfortunate. Take a look at some of the casualties here. See, my Romena Marines really did some work in this battle. It's a lot of... They were front and center the whole time fighting through the Rohirrim spearmen, so that's to be expected. One of my Romena marksmen got absolutely massacred by Sin's cavalry, so we didn't really see a whole lot out of them. The other ones did okay, 100 and 129. It's not bad. Who else did really well? Seafarers and Nindamos. I was not disappointed with their performance at all. Eldlandi nobles really just slaughtered people. Numenorian Lancers did okay. I mostly used them to fight other cavalry instead of picking on infantry as they're generally supposed to do. But some of my shield guard really just drove it home into the enemy's heart and got 176 kills. So there you guys have it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the semi-finals, so we're going to follow this up with the finals video. And that's going to be available on the official Reforged YouTube channel. I'll put a link down in the description for you guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll join me for whatever comes next. Take care.